Hey everyone, it is Dave. Welcome in. It's time for modules 3 and 4. I'm going to walk you through those in just a moment, but I'm going to give you an overview here. And don't forget that in module 3, there is always a discussion board. Module 4, the second module, there's always going to be a quiz that deals with the two modules together as a group. So this week, as far as topics, we have line, we have color theory. Both of those are pretty heavy and important topics to cover. But after that, everything else is really easy. For instance, pattern and texture in Module 4, and also a really fun lecture on the life and times of Vincent van Gogh. And I do hope you enjoyed that lecture. That was one of the more professional lectures I've had to do a couple years ago. We also have our journals that we need to keep up with. And finally, every few weeks we do have one project that is neither discussion board or quiz. And in this case, we're going to be making a collage, usually based on the life of Vincent van Gogh, but we're going to use our life instead. And so I'm going to explain that project to you shortly. Join me. We're going to head over to the Canvas site. I'll walk you through the next two modules. All right, here we are over on the Canvas site. I'm going to cover Module 3 first. Up top, you've got the video you're watching right now. It is repeated in Module number 4. Underneath the introduction, just a reminder of what we're going to be covering this particular week. Make sure you've watched the lectures about line as well as color theory. We have our objectives down below. And then finally, our discussion board and journal number 3 needs to be completed. Underneath that, we've got our office hours every Monday and Wednesday from 4:30 to 7 p.m. Our lecture about line, study guide, and for the further exploration section, we do have our reading and one video. After that is color theory. This is probably the most complex lecture we're going to have in the first half of the semester. It has a lot of terms. Don't be afraid of those. They're very simple terms. We just have to put a definition to them and see how they interact with one another. We have our lecture, study guide, and in our further exploration section, we have a couple of readings and then also a video from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which focuses in on a pointillist painting that will actually be discussed in the lecture. I'm going to zip down to journal number 3. And here we're going to have you create a color wheel. Again, journals are turned in at the end of this semester. You're going to use a piece of drawing paper in order to do this, and you'll use the colored pencils as well. I do have this color wheel down here as reference, but I would like you to make one that's more in keeping with the color wheel that is in the video. So you can see how it's kind of shaped more like a wedge or a pizza slice rather than something more like the color wheel below. So just keep it simple, do the wedges, and that's going to be perfect. Up above that, we do have a discussion board. We have our discussion boards in our first module, and then again, the second module contains the quizzes. So for this discussion board here, I'm going to have you create an image very much inspired by Mondrian. You saw his work in the lecture about line, and this is a very popular artist. His artwork is very easy to create. I do ask that you use the straight edge for this project. You'll note in the video that the artist draws everything by hand. Please use the straight edge. You will have a better result for this project. And make sure just to read through the directions here. It should be pretty simple in terms of how to create the artwork, and I'm going to have you share it in amongst your group. Down below, 16 points for the post, 4 points for a response to another post. You have the due dates and some other examples of Mondrian works. As with any discussion board and any project, you are not going to be copying any of the examples. You are going to make your own unique artwork. And for Mondrian, it's a lot of fun. So good luck with that project. And that is everything for Module 3. I'm going to go ahead and switch over now to Module number 4. So with Module number 4, once again we have our video up top, our introduction. So this lecture we just have Vincent van Gogh and pattern and texture. Hopefully you enjoy the Vincent van Gogh lecture. It's one of my favorites. And for the assessments this week, we do have a quiz and journal entry, but also a collage. So I will go through the instructions for that. I've got the lecture and the study guide for Vincent van Gogh, and then the further exploration section is a link to the letters of Vincent van Gogh. A lot of what we know about the artist comes from letters, mostly between him and his brother. If you're a Doctor Who fan, we have a clip here from the Doctor Who episode Vincent and the Doctor. From the 1970s, a Don McLean song called Vincent, and 70s TV In Search Of, hosted by Leonard Nimoy, has a great episode on the artist Vincent van Gogh. After that, we have our lecture on pattern and texture, study guide, and the further exploration section has just a couple very short videos, one on the technique of impasto and the other on the technique of frottage. For our journal entry, I'm actually going to have you go out and shoot some photographs. And in this project, you're going to have 3 images. The first one, you have line as the focal point or subject matter of the work, so you can kind of see how it is here. The second deals with pattern, and the third and final deals with texture. You also want to write a couple sentences about what you're shooting, as well as how this fulfills this particular category. The Module 2 quiz deals with line, color theory, Vincent van Gogh, and pattern and texture. And I will tell you that the longer lectures, color theory as well as Vincent van Gogh, have the majority of the questions on the quiz. There are 20 questions in all, and you do have 20 minutes in which to complete that quiz. And then the last thing we have to cover is the collage. So you've recently had a lecture on Vincent van Gogh, and his works are something that are very personal, and I'm going to have you create a very similar project. For the project material, you're going to have a piece of paper, drawing paper, and onto that you're going to create a collage of 2-dimensional art. Photographs, either real or printed, fabric scraps, newsprint, wrapping paper, anything like that, 2-dimensional. You'll need some scissors, and finally, probably a glue stick would work great for this project. So what I want you to do is think about your individual social and cultural diversity. Think of the stories that your life can tell, and create a collage based on one of those stories. I always try to think about maybe some major topics like school, family, career choice, hobbies, sports, things like that. Choose one story and create a collage about it. You're also then going to write a statement. I just need half a page, no more than a full page. Make sure to double space, regular types of typeface, 12-point font, please proofread, and that's going to be this project. When you create a collage, make sure to cover the entire surface with imagery. While color does work best, you may use black and white. Do not do photographs in terms of making bricks. You want to make sure that the photographs are spaced irregularly, have some at diagonals, crop some of them, overlap them, things like that. Size, scale, shape of objects. Please do not use any computer or computer software to create this project, though you can use a computer to print the images. and make sure that the artist statement tells me about the collage. So here's a couple examples. The first one is by a professional artist. This is Romar Bearden. Since he has passed away, I wrote his statement, and when you put that into a Word doc, 12-point font, that is about 12 lines of text. And then underneath this is a student example. Once again, this is going to be about 12, 13 lines of text, and that's what I'm looking for. On average, and again, go through and read the directions, but on average, you're going to use about 25 images. The project is worth 30 points. 20 points go to the image itself. 10 points goes to the written statement. And one last thing, and it's always surprised me, number one, how much students have loved this project. And second, how personal some of these stories can get. Please keep in mind that I am a Title IX mandated reporter, and with that, I think that is the end of the instructions for this, and also the end of the module. So if you have questions, please feel free to stop by my office hours, Mondays and Wednesdays, and also you can send me an email if you have questions. So I will be back shortly to tell you about modules 5 and 6.